Pick Six Sports, what's up? Hope everyone's having a great Wednesday. I hope your week is going better than Sunday went for the Cowboys. We are launching a show missing two notable people, so don't drop off. We're going to talk about what happened to them and when you can expect them back on the channel. But let's go ahead and kick off this intro and we'll get this show started.
BJ Nix, are you here?
Present.
Present. Spoonie, Timothy Spoonie.
Present, sir.
Margaret and Mary. Do we have a Margaret and Mary?
Yes.
Cool.
And the margaritas.
All right. Class here. We're ready. Let's go.
Yes, let's go.
Okay.
And the Cowboys have it. It's Parsons on top of it.
Pick Six Sports fam, Cowboys Nation, good evening. Hope you are having a great Wednesday and your week is a success so far. I want to start out with our guy, Dom. So, Dom, we missed you Friday night. How's your week going so far? Tell us about the wedding.
Yeah, so I missed you guys Friday night due to my nephew's wedding. And it was a great wedding, beautiful event. I like the garb that they chose to wear. You know, the bride, she was beautiful. My nephew decided to wear an outfit straight from the motherland. So he was looking fly. But yeah, it went off without a hit. Beautiful time, great ceremony. I was able to perform the wedding for him. So to send them into their new season as husband and wife, it was amazing. And then, you know, it felt like an extended day or extended weekend because I had Friday off and Saturday watching all the college football, anticipating my Cowboys, and then they just threw a wet blanket all over my Sunday. And none of us expected the kind of outing and showing that they put up Sunday. But then when you look back in hindsight, you go, that whole psychology of it, sports psychology, that team just seemed to come out flat. At a time when the Cardinals came out, it seemed like fighting for their season. So hats off to the Arizona Cardinals, but my goodness, yeah, tough Sunday.
I was really disappointed. Well, first off, congratulations to your nephew and his wife and the new extended family. But the last weekend was like the best college football weekend we've had so far. So I was really looking forward to doing the show with you. And then I remembered earlier that day that you were going to be on. So I tried to do it justice. I don't know if you had a chance to run it back, but we had some pretty good college football conversation. Spoonie, my man, how's it going? How's your week going? I'm glad that you're healthy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I get to watch the game when it first started. I went to a friend's funeral, friend of mine's family. And I went to chat. I'm like, okay, why is my phone buzzing? I was like, you know, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. Watched the game, a little bit of it, and wow. But other than that, I'm good. Getting over a little head cold. I'm here, and ready to talk some Cowboy football, and hopefully we can have some good things to say that we could they can move forward from this. So
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you're feeling better. Seems like there's something going around. As you notice, there's only 3 of the 5 people on your screen right now. So if you follow Nick's on Twitter, which you should all be following him, and if you are not, it's actually in the YouTube description. You can just click his Twitter and check in on him. But he is down for the count. He had to get IVs today. He has some illness going on. Hopefully, it doesn't spread to his family. Hope that everybody else is good and Nick's rebounds quickly. But he's out today, not able to join us today. So he's in our thoughts and prayers. Hopefully, he gets better soon. So we reached out to Mariella saying, Mary, how are you? Are you on the injury report? And she said, I'm actually dealing with something too. I'm feeling a little bit better, but I'm not quite there yet. So she was a DNP. We think she's going to be good to practice tomorrow. She'll definitely be ready to go Friday. But Nick's, he's still questionable. He's up in the air, so we'll see how that goes. So, as you guys know, Sunday was a disaster. We all went into this game feeling really good. It's the Arizona Cardinals. They're trying to tank for Caleb Williams. They don't have anything to play for. They can't score. They only scored 1 touchdown in the second half all year. We'll be totally fine. We got our defense. Looks like our offensive linemen are going to be back. We're going to have the best 5 out there, or at least most of them out there. And then about an hour before kickoff, we found out Tyron Smith is suiting up. He's a team captain. That's usually a good sign that he's going to play. And about 45 minutes before kickoff, Tyron Smith is not going to start. So we had Brock Hoffman starting at center. We had TJ Bass, that a lot of us like, starting at right guard for Zach Martin. And then we had Chuma Udoga sliding from left guard to left tackle and got Tyler Smith back. So the good news is we got Tyler back. The bad news is 60% of the offensive line is not what we envisioned. So how did you guys feel? Spoonie, I know that you caught it later. How did you feel when you learned that we had to go into that game with that offensive line? Because I'll start, I still felt pretty good because I was like, well, it's the Cardinals. I know they have 10 sacks this year and 30 pressures. That's pretty good. However, I don't trust that their secondary is going to be able to sustain us. Our defense should have no problem against their offense. I could not have been more wrong. But I still felt pretty good knowing that the offensive line was out. So my bad for overestimating the team and forgetting that this is the NFL and they have first, second, third, fourth round picks on their team and former college studs on their team and guys that are fighting for contract incentives and trying to get the bonuses. I overlooked that. Won't make that mistake again. But Spoonie, how did you feel when you saw the injury report situation throughout the week and then as we started getting notifications closer to the game?
I felt fine. In the past when we have the offensive line shuffle, we play. I know this is a different year, but we beat better teams than what we faced with the Cardinals. So I figured that it's going to be tough, but they'll get it through. And I didn't expect this. I really didn't with the O line situation. But again, we beat better teams than that. I think they overestimated a little bit. Listen, the best team who benefit from this game was Vegas. I just put it that way. That was the best team. Vegas benefit because of the spread. It was the number one bet. The Cowboys and Cardinals with the 13.5 point spread. Everybody took the Cowboys. So Vegas made a killing on Sunday. That was the best team who benefited. Again, we should have, in my opinion, we should have won. I understand McCarthy wanted to protect Dak Prescott with the inexperience with the offensive line and stuff like that. But as I always say, if you could go that far down the field with ease, you just got to finish at the end zone, and that's one thing that we lack, and we didn't do a good job of. So it's just still hard to just think that we lost to this team. No, this team had nothing to play for. We're talking about Joshua Dobbs, who wasn't in training camp with them. He just got traded there before week 1. I mean, my God. So, sad. Let me sad.
Dom, how about you? You're the offensive line guy. So, how did you feel about the state of the offensive line, knowing how much in flux it was? And how did you feel about our chances, even knowing that we were going to be down 3 offensive linemen?
Yeah, so, and now at this point, 9 days ago, I tweeted out, no need to stress over the nuclear scenario with the Cowboys offensive line. the potential for injuries is a way of life, in the NFL. So Dallas has as good of a situation as any with their depth, and are far greater than most with their starters. And then fast forward to Sunday, and we're without 60% of the line. So basically, the nuclear situation, that button was pressed, and we got to see what it was like. So it was surprising because 3 of the 5 were out. When I tweeted that out, I'm thinking, really, it's about, you might lose 2 of your guys. That's hard. That hurts. But I think we have the guys to be able to step in and solidify the offensive line and do well enough. And whenever you consider Dak Prescott getting the ball out the fastest of any quarterback at that time before this Sunday than any other quarterback in the NFL, then you feel good about it. Offense looked pretty efficient the first couple of weeks outside of the red zone, of course, and your defense is firing on all cylinders, so you can lean on that defense. But then when we saw what happened, all that came unraveled. But initially going into the game, looking at the nuclear situation that was the offensive line, I still felt confident that they could pull this one out because of the opponent that they were playing. And we didn't see a lot of the Arizona Cardinals as far as their overall defense, knowing that they were also missing a key piece inside, a former Cowboy. So I thought, man, we could have gotten something going. And we did pretty good between the 20s. But once again, red zone, the inefficiency of it came back to haunt us.
Yeah, and the red zone is definitely one of the big sticking points. And Mike McCarthy said as much. There was 3 blinking lights. That's one of the 3 that he mentioned. I want to start with another one of the things that he mentioned, the penalties. So the Cowboys historically have had penalty issues. And it's not just the Cowboys, though. I want to point this out. The games that the Cowboys play in, especially if it's a primetime or nationally televised game,
right,
generally draw more flags for both teams combined than any other game that week. In fact, when we played the 49ers the first time in the playoffs, the Cowboys 49ers game had more flags than 3 of the other playoff games combined. Like, that's how it just is what it is. I don't know if you want to call it a Cowboys bias or not, or whatever reason, but there's an over officiating that happens a lot of times when the Cowboys play. This game, we had a ridiculous amount of penalties in the first half. And what was frustrating about it was there were a few that I can think of that were definitely questionable, like Deron Bland on the pass interference. In my opinion, their legs got tripped up. As a wide receiver, I've had that happen to me where I'm like, I had a step on him, but the ref didn't call it because our feet got tangled. It sucks, but it's just the way that it's ruled. I was a little bit frustrated about that one, but a lot of them were easy. It wasn't like, come on, refs, you're cheating us. Like, this is blatant. There was a lot of offsides, false starts, like things like that are you can't really debate it. Now, if you want to say the Wanye Thomas being offsides on the field goal, I don't think he was offsides. I don't think anybody was offsides. So that one, questionable. But overall, most of them were not really, subjective calls. They were pretty black and white, and that's frustrating. Like, you have to be better at that. You cannot give your opponents free yardage. You can't extend drives. You can't put them in better field position repeatedly. And we did that on both sides of the ball. So penalties is definitely something we're going to have to monitor moving forward with this team. But frankly, it's something we always have to monitor with this team. So how did you guys feel about the penalties? Do you guys agree with me that most of them were pretty clear and, things that we just have to clean up and do better? We can't continue to do that and help our opponents get down the field. But we'll start with Dom this time. What were your thoughts on the penalties for this game?
It felt like 2020 all over again. Whenever you have Mike McCarthy era start with the Cowboys, and it's like, all right, what's going on? The lack of discipline on this team, that was the number one thing that it felt like needed to be corrected in his first year as the Cowboys head coach. You heard him harp on it like press conference after press conference within the week, at the end of the season, before the next season started. And then it seemed like, things were starting to turn. But then for them to return to the 3rd worst performance as far as penalties are concerned for the Mike McCarthy era, that was a major negative for the team. And it's hard to win a football game whenever you lose the turnover battle. You're not doing so well with red zone. But then when you couple in the idea that now you're going to lose the penalties game, it was just a disaster. And you're on the road while trying to do that. Man, it hurt this team tremendously. And some of those penalties happen in big spots. So you're talking about in the red zone. Well, you had a couple of penalties right there that set things back. And looking at like a guy like TJ Bass having his first start in the NFL, his penalty was a big blow to the team because really he should have just let the guy go. But it's one of those try hard, not knowing where you were on the field, not understanding the situation. Really, there was no need to do it. So just take the simple loss, roll with the next down. It's kind of the equivalent of, for an offensive lineman, it's the equivalent of a quarterback having second down and you're right there, second and 7. You're 14 yards away from the end zone scoring, and instead of just throwing the ball out of bounds, you're trying to force it in there, and then you get a pick. You take points off the scoreboard for your team. So in that situation, just let it go, take the loss, but instead, major blow that set them back. So yeah, bad penalties at the worst of times, just as they were starting to get things going.
Yeah. What about you, Spoonie?
I'm always a firm believer that you don't want to involve the ref for a reason why a team lost. But I have to say that it was part of it. But again, to be a great team, you don't have the refs. You don't rely on the refs to make the right call because you're going to beat that team down the way they should have. But I had to be quite honest. The penalties with Michael Gallup, my God. I mean, it was just a blatantly pass interference. You threw the flag out to put it back in your pocket. What do you want fans to think? I mean, it was a pass. The guy's turn. He's already in Gallup's body. The ball is still coming. Your head's not even turned around, and I just don't understand. But it's again, if they would have took care of business and from start to finish, even with the offensive line situation, we would have never needed to rely on the refs to make the calls. But again, you would think that in the McCarthy era, that this team, especially the veteran guys, you figure some of these things out already. It's like we forgot where we went backwards just this game. And again, the whole thing is how you respond from this bad loss for the next game against the Patriots. But you got to think. From McCarthy's standpoint, for what he was saying, as far as he had the accountability. I give him that he should have been a little bit more aggressive. He was just more, and we understand the offensive line. You don't want your quarterback out there hurt. You don't want to risk no injuries, and I get all of that. But there was certain things. If you at the end of the day, what's the point of having Hunter Lipke? You know what I'm saying? That's supposed to be one of the guys.
We'll circle back to that part. That's a really good point.
I'm sorry. So I'll stay with the fact of the matter is that McCarthy needed to be more. He could have been more creative. Okay, you wanted to be the play caller. This is the thing, and now what you having is you having people compare the red zone offense with Kellen Moore versus Mike McCarthy. Even though it's still early in the season, we got about 13 weeks left of football. It's one bad game, a really bad loss. We should have won, but hopefully they'll figure things out and become more crisp moving forward.
Yeah. See, when you talk penalties too, I think anybody who's watched baseball should understand this reference. You have to know the ump that you're going against. Some umps have different strike zones, and sometimes they're just not consistent. Sometimes they're calling everything inside a strike when other umps will call it a ball, and you have to know that. So when it's like the end of the first quarter and your team has 6 penalties or 7 penalties or whatever it was already, you have to talk on the sideline to each other and say, hey, we have to be smarter. We can't do things that we usually would this game. We got to tone it down a little bit because they're going to call it. And like a perfect example, one of the most pivotal, what could have been turning points of the game, Kevontae Turpin gets the massive punt return and it gets called back for a holding call that happened basically at the line of scrimmage. It was a 61-yard difference from where we would have had the ball for that one penalty. Like, that's a situation where you have to just know better as a player. Like, I can't risk it. If there's no point in me doing that, let me just let him go. Like, small things like that matter, especially when you're talking 61-yard difference, and I think it was like a 9-point game or something like that at that point. That's a huge difference. The Michael Gallup situation, yeah, that was. I don't mind if they would have not called it in the first place, even though it was clearly defensive pass interference. But that's not a penalty you should pick up the flag and wave off. The CeeDee Lamb is another perfect example of knowing your ump, knowing your refs, knowing who you're up against. When we threw the fade to him in the end zone, and he basically gave up on the play to throw his arms up in the air to look for the ref. The ref's not going to bail you out. You already knew how they were calling the game. You're not going to get that flag.
Right.
Fight for the ball. And in fact, if you fight for the ball, it might look more egregious of a penalty and you might get the flag. So that's just, it is what it is. Penalties suck. It's a part of the game. The refs did not lose us that game. A lot of what our own team did, coaching-wise and play-wise, is why we lost that game. But it's a big part of the game, and it's something we have to talk about.
Yeah, one of the big penalties that kind of went really kind of got lost was whenever CeeDee Lamb got the offensive pass interference in the second quarter, right there in that drive where they were trying to, get a twofer. And if you really go back and you slow that down, it's like both of them engaged with each other's arms extended, the cornerback and CD. And really the cornerback was in on him first. After the 5 yards, they were already downfield. And he gets the catch. And then they throw the flag on him for offensive pass interference. That drive was killed at that point. And then we have to punt. And then you see what happened where they were able to drive with the ball with 30 some odd seconds left and got their field goal. So that right there, because it looked like Dallas was in that mode where they were about to get in a field goal range and at least get a field goal. That's a 6-point swing right there. And it made a huge difference. And then another missed thing by the refs was that extra point attempt wherever they kicked the field goal on their last score. There's no way possible. It wasn't like that thing hooked in and they just straight up missed that. And so you're talking about making it from a 12-point lead at that point to an 11. And then Dak doing, his last minute throw where he got the interception there on their very last drive. Maybe he's not too risky at that point. You're down 11 at that point, like
kick the field goal.
Yeah, you can kick a field goal. So little bitty things, those are the hidden things, but still, we're not making excuses. We're just bringing up facts that happened during the game, certain points in the game. Refs didn't take this from them. They lost that game.
Yeah, and another thing I want to talk about, which I think kind of leads into this topic perfectly, is red zone penalties have to stop. We have to quit killing our own red zone chances with penalties. Terrence Steele had a false start the week prior.
Yep.
Tony Pollard scores a touchdown, and a penalty calls it back. Like, we have to stop shooting ourselves in the foot in the red zone. It sucks to get a penalty anywhere. It's compounded significantly when it happens in the red zone. We have to stop doing that. We have to play more disciplined football, especially when blood's in the water and we're right there. Like, that's got to stop. All right, so that's going to end it for the penalty talk. You guys want to talk defense or offense first?
Offense.
Offense. Perfect. So I have a lot to say about the offense. I'm really frustrated with where the offense is right now. I don't know which direction you guys want to go with the offense. I want to give it up to you guys for. Oh, first off, Mr. Nix is in the building. Nix, we all gave you our well wishes earlier. You and Mary, we hope you both feel better. Appreciate you rocking with us. So, Spoonie, let's go with you first. Let's talk about the offense. You brought up Hunter Lipke earlier, so definitely touch on that. But what are your general thoughts for the way that the offense played this week and how they played so far? Anything you want different? Anything you feel good about? Bad? Whatever. The floor is yours.
Well, I'll say this. We haven't seen much of the offense from week 1, week 2. We all know that they're still trying to work out the kinks here and there. But at the end of the day, Mike McCarthy has to be a lot more creative. The offense pretty much a lot of short plays. It'd be good for him to take some shots down the field. I mean, this is why we got Brandon Cooks, right? We got Brandon Cooks here. For that, I understand this is week 3. and things maybe this Cardinals game, he would have loved to do it, but because of the offensive line situation, he didn't want to risk his quarterback getting hit. Waiting for that one of the receivers to get down the field, get open, and stuff like that. But that's the area I think that we need to get better at, is take some shots down the field to have these defenses respect us more, and that will help us get a better running game. And of course, it will help us even with the red zone, because again, you want defenses to be offense, and right now, again, it's a new offense. It's something different. It's not that Kellen Moore. So you understand the guys got to do a lot more different things. But look, this Sunday's game, we be changing signals. Now you have to understand the new signal calls, because you have former players with the Patriots who's giving. So this offense has to be a little bit more wide open, a little bit more explosive. And you have to trust your quarterback. You have to trust Dak Prescott. And on top of that, Dak Prescott needs to use his legs. I was against it because of the injury he had a couple of years back during the COVID year. But now, he had a good scramble in the Arizona game. At the same time, we can use his legs in the red zone, and that will pretty much open up this offense a little bit more. If it's more than just watch out for Lamb, watch out for Dak if he runs out of the pocket. You want defense to respect the offense, so he has to be a little bit more creative when it comes to Mike McCarthy.
And on Dak, too, to your point, there was a situation in the red zone where Dak handed the ball off, the defensive end crashed. 3 years ago, Dak's pulling it, running outside, taking his chances one-on-one versus a cornerback. I think there was actually 2 defensive backs out there. But again, Dak needed 4 yards. I feel pretty confident Dak could have gotten in. So that's something that they look at on film and say, hey, next time pull that, especially if they crash down. So, Dom, what are your thoughts on the offense? We'll leave the red zone to its own separate beast. We'll talk about that next. But overall with the offense.
Number one of the things to mention for the good is it's a pretty balanced offense as far as the run-pass ratio. Right now, Dallas currently has the second most rush attempts in all of the NFL. They have 107. They're only behind Philadelphia, who seems to have games, under control pretty early, lean on the defense. They're playing just like we're playing, really. It's the same kind of style as far as, philosophy, I should say. So they only got 6 more carries than we do. Then when it comes to rush yards per game, we have 147 rush yards per game this season. If you go into the season telling me that we're going to have 147 yards a game, that's what I know, all right, we're doing extremely well. So we're 8th in overall rush yards. When it comes to rushing TDs, we're 10th in the NFL. And then, explosive plays, rushes over 20 yards, we're 4th. So we're doing what we really want to do in the Mike McCarthy philosophy, is getting a rock to your running backs, doing well with it. But a lot of that is happening in between the 20-yard lines. So overall, I do like the balance. I like what we're doing rushing the ball. But still, it seems to be the issue of running the ball on first down, running the ball in times when you really should be attacking, attack more. And I like the comment that Nick's put. Mike McCarthy admitted to, from a great question from our girl Aisha Morrison, who got to get that out of him of, do you feel like you were just, what about the vertical game? What happened? And his answer boiled down to playing it safe because of the offensive line situation. But really, the offensive line was doing fine. They were working Arizona in many spots. So I just wish they could have run the ball a little bit more earlier in the game while throwing a little bit deeper. Instead, they threw a lot of short passes. Really didn't even work the intermediate game. So I wish they would attack more. I also wish they would attack the middle of the field with Brandon Cooks. Somehow, some way, you got to get Cooks involved earlier in the game. You got your dynamic playmaker out of Lamb. I think you can hit him at any point. But now we need to find a way to work in Cooks. It's 2 games for him now, and he's got, 39 yards, 3 catches, 39 yards on the season. And you think that he would be the perfect target, almost like a safety valve for Dak there in a red zone. So some of the concepts that we saw, I wish they let him play on the inside more. down closer to the goal line and let Lamb go to the outside. They're working Lamb on the middle in Arizona, and teams are doing things to kind of bracket him, to clog the middle. So give me the outsides with Lamb, because they were putting Gallup out there, and Gallup was getting the one-on-ones on the outside while they were doing things to try to neutralize Lamb. So flip it. Let Gallup go on the inside. He's a slant god anyway, and he had a great game himself, so I'm not slighting him at all. But when you're talking about red zone, when you're talking about trying to get those big plays, put Lamb on the outside and let him get the potential for the one-on-ones. Or if they roll coverage to him, now you're opening up the middle for your other dynamic guys. So just tinker, fix some things, flip some things, be a little bit more efficient. But like Spoonie said, work the vertical game, throw it a little bit deeper, and then run the ball at the right times. So that's kind of my biggest gripe, because when you're running it, you do well, but you're putting yourself behind on the sticks in certain situations.
Yeah, I think both of what you said is fair. I have a slightly different take, though, on the offense and in some of my frustrations. And this is through 3 games. And admittedly, we had 2 blowouts. But I still saw the same things in those games. And it's a trend now. It's 3 weeks of the ADOT, the average depth of target, which is what Dom was just talking about, being super low. So West Coast offensive philosophy. Obviously, we're not a full West Coast. We're Texas Coast. But we're West Coast principles. You're using the passing game as an extension of your run. Dom just gave you the rushing numbers. We're running the ball a ton. So if you're also using your passing game as an extension of the run, it means most of our plays are essentially runs or passes that are like runs. We have to threaten the defense and force them to account for more space, because right now, when almost everything you're doing is horizontal, not vertical, you're not pushing the ball downfield. And when we do, it's successful. For the record, CeeDee Lamb 2 weeks in a row has had big gains going deep, but we're not targeting them often. It's what's essentially happening is you're forcing a defense to really account for about 15 yards of space. So if you're dropping into cover 4 and you have 6 or 8 guys back in coverage, you're only actually having to cover about 15 yards because you know that we're not throwing the ball deep. So that means there's a lot of bodies for the Cardinals in a short amount of space, which is clogging up some of the throwing lanes. So I want to see us be more aggressive with that, because I know that they played quarters coverage a lot, and when teams do that, and so did the Jets, cover 3, cover 4 looks. When they do that, they're taking away the deep game. However, they have less players underneath. So what the Cowboys are doing is we're taking what the defense gives us. And that's not necessarily a flaw from a philosophical standpoint. A lot of teams do that. They say, well, if you're going to drop guys back, we'll just hit Gallup on the slant, which we've had success with. But when you only do that, they don't have to drop as far when they're dropping into their cover 4 sets. When they're dropping into their windows, their shells, they don't have to drop as far, so they can keep their eyes on the quarterback. So I just feel like there's ways to beat that. Like you can run spear concepts, which is, for those that don't know, imagine a shallow crossing route, but somebody runs a deep crosser and somebody else runs a post, so it's attacking at 2 different levels deep. You can run things like that against the cover 4 defense and still kind of run West Coast philosophy, because it's a crossing concept. So I want to see us do more in the passing game to force defenses to respect the passing game. I like that we're running the ball. I like the way that we're running the ball. We've been creative from the 20s to the 20s for the most part, and the run game's been pretty good. Tony Pollard's been really good. I would like to see more balance from the run game, and when I say that, I mean who's running the ball. Like Tony Pollard right now is on pace for 350 carries. That's crazy. You can't go from 200 carries or whatever it was last year, 180 or whatever it was, to 350 carries. That's a lot of wear and tear on a running back. Got to dial that down a little bit. So get Rico Dowdle the ball. Get Hunter Lipke the ball. Spoonie mentioned him earlier. Let Dak run the ball some. Let Deuce Vaughn run the ball some. Like, we got to disperse the carries a little bit better, so that's where I mean balance in the run game. But we definitely have to attack more from a defense. I don't love the idea of always just taking what the defense gives us, because in my mind, imagine you have Michael Jordan on your offense. It's the final play of the game. You're going to try to run a pick and roll or something to get him open so you get the ball in his hands, not just say, well, they covered him, so let's just throw the ball to some other player on the team. You want Jordan to get the ball in his hands because he's the best player. And we've done a pretty good job of getting the ball to CeeDee Lamb previous games. Didn't do a great job of getting him the ball this game because we kind of just took what was available. So I'd like to see us find ways to feature CeeDee Lamb on a week-to-week basis, which we did do the first 2 weeks, not as much last week. I understand things kind of got awry because of the offensive line, but I have some frustrations there. Last gripe I have with the offense is our tight ends got to be better. They have to be better. So Jake Ferguson, to his credit, did a pretty good job once the ball was in his hands this week, but drops have been an issue. Schoonmaker had a drop this week. Hendershot had a drop in the end zone week 1. Ferguson's dropped, I think, 2 or 3 passes now. Like they're not making anybody fear them in the red zone, which is something we'll talk about in a second. And they're not making anybody fear them in the middle of the field. Like, we have to find ways to get more productivity out of them. We had the blow with John Stevens Jr. We had high hopes for him, but he's out. He was injured in preseason. It is what it is. So let's stop talking about him. How do we get these 3 guys that we have on the team the ball and make the defense account for them? Because right now, defenses are like, cool, throw the ball to him for 4 yards. Hendershot had 1 target, 3-yard gain. They don't have any reason to respect Hendershot. Ferguson had multiple targets. He actually has the most targets of our team in the red zone. Like, the tight end room has to be better. And even from a blocking standpoint, once we got onto the red zone, Ferguson had multiple whiffs. If you watch the film, it's ugly. Schoonmaker, to his credit, looked really good in blocking in the red zone, but Ferguson looked terrible in blocking in the red zone. Like, you got to be better than that. So the tight end room, out of all of the units of our team, even defense, which we'll talk about too, has a specific group. The tight end room has to be better from a receiving standpoint and from a blocking standpoint. Schoonmaker's been good as a blocker, hasn't done much as a receiver. Hendershot really hasn't done much either way. Ferguson's been kind of hit or miss. So the tight end room's a big frustration, and I want to see us be more vertical in our offense is kind of the summary of what my gripes are. But I think if we're going to continue to do the same thing from a week-to-week basis as we start playing some of these teams that are better, we're going to have issues because we have to look at who we've played so far. We played the Giants and the Jets, who are 2 of the bottom 5 teams in the NFL right now. Played the Arizona Cardinals, bottom 5 team in the NFL right now. We haven't played Murderers Row or even average teams so far, and we've been successful the first 2 weeks, and then this week didn't go that well. But once we play those better opponents, we have to be more aggressive, and maybe having the offensive line will give them more confidence to take more shots and be more aggressive. But at the same time, it's been 3 weeks. We've seen basically the same thing from the offense 3 weeks in a row now. So, like, I want to see more from an attacking standpoint. I do want to give one thing before I jump off my soapbox. The Cowboys offense this year has 12 10-plus play drives already this year. We had 31 for the entire season last year. 12 already through 3 games is crazy. Like, that pace of what it could be. But at the same time, that also means if you're having 10-plus play drives, you have chances for lost yardage. You have chances for penalties. Like, we're not getting the explosive plays like the Tony Pollard 40 and 50-yard runs we had last year, or the, big play from CeeDee Lamb. We're seeing a lot of slowly and methodically eating clock and moving downfield, but also there's not that putting the foot on the gas pedal and speeding up when we need to, which I would like to see more of that. So maybe add some hurry up element to the game. Occasionally sprinkle that in. Maybe that could be something they could try. Okay, in rant. Now let's talk red zone, because that's the second blinking light that Mike McCarthy brought up. So we know last week 2 weeks ago against the Jets have one of the better defenses in the league, even though they're not a good team right now overall. So we kind of wrote it off. It's not a big deal. We had a penalty. We had a touchdown called back. It is what it is. The play calling was pretty good. We missed Ferguson on a would have been touchdown. Dak just overthrew it. There were some things there. I didn't feel that way this week, and I'm frustrated about that. Last week, I was like, I can justify it because of, the way things went, the defense we're playing, and we missed a couple chances to score points. But this week, I didn't like the red zone play calling at all. And I'm really frustrated about that. So, Spoonie, red zone offense. What do you like? What do you dislike? What ideas do you have to get this thing going?
Well, what I want is I want to be able to keep doing what we did last year with what we was doing with 2 former Cowboys players, Schultz and Zeke. We wanted to run it in, We had Zeke when we wanted to pass. Schultz was a valuable option, and right now that's the one thing we're missing. I'm not saying that we don't have it. I believe we do have it. I believe that Hunter Lipke could be that type of guy in there. As far as again, when you have CD Lamb, you got Michael Gallup, you have Hendershot, you have Ferguson. Hell, I put up Schoolmaker. You have guys who are very athletic that can be able to go up and get that ball. Whether it's a fly pattern, whether it's something short, whether you want to pound it in, you have the guys. The thing is about putting it together, and this is something that we didn't really have a problem with last year. So with Mike McCarthy, again. He came out and said that he wants to split the ball. He never liked that Zeke had so many carries, and hence this is why when he came on to be the head coach, we started seeing Tony Pollard get some carries, right? So again, like you said earlier, why are we seeing Pollard with so many carries? Utilize other guys who has a nose for the end zone. Hell, even what's his name? Oh my God, Deuce Vaughn. It's very terrible. Defensive players don't like to look for small guys in that short amount of space. You could be even Deuce Vaughn could be a valuable weapon in the end zone. We have so much talent on this team to be able to do it. And the thing is, it's like we're having a hard time, and that comes from the coach himself. Dak Prescott himself, you could run it in. So when it comes to the red zone situation, is utilize the best players you have that 9 times out of 10, they're going to make a play on that ball for you to score. And those are the guys that should be put in there. And we have those guys. So it's pretty much whether Mike McCarthy learned his mistakes from this last game. And he goes, hey, he did say in the press conference, so I'm hoping in the upcoming weeks, starting against the Patriots, that we start seeing a little bit more of that. This is, these are the things, and, credit to Professor O and Dom and Mendoza as well. Not everybody is it's a college guru and stuff like that. But when you start talking about, I remember the Hunter Lipke situation, the conversation that we had. My God, everything that you guys have said in the past, if we could go back to the tape, we should be able to see it. We understand he's a rookie. But listen, at the end of the day, he can do it. We saw it in the preseason. We saw some plays the first 2 weeks of the season, how he was blocking and how tough he is, how strong he is. These are the type of things that we should be getting these guys involved with. And so I'm hoping down the line that he will be able to do this. Like he said before, like last year, he had plays for certain individuals when he was coaching Jerry Rice and them back in the days. So if you have plays, you should have plays for these guys too. It shouldn't have to be the same. Certain guys are better than other guys in what they do. And in my personal opinion, if you see Tony Pollard trying to hit in 3 times and he fails, I would tell you, maybe the end zone is not for him. Let's call it Hunter Lipke. Let me call it Deuce Vaughn. Let me call Rico Dowdle. Let me create something. Get the best guys on the field. And again, we have heard this from Mike McCarthy when Kellen Moore was calling plays. But for some reason, we're not seeing it. When now you have the play calls in your hands. So that's why I stand with that.
What about you, Dom?
So there are a couple of things that I would like to see them do whenever they get down in the red zone. One of the things is using more players in the backfield with the idea of leaking them out a little bit later as the players develop. Because one of the things you see Arizona did was they're dropping their middle linebacker into the zone. And they played a lot of zone. And earlier you were basically mentioning the idea of flooding that zone because they're not playing one-on-one. They're not playing a man. They're playing an area. So you want to put some stress on that guy as he's playing an area to decide, do I come up and play, the shallow, or do I stay back to play the guy who's a little bit deeper coming behind me? And then when you got that Mike linebacker dropping deep like he's doing to play his zone, well, have somebody give him some eye candy. So maybe, pre-snap, have some motion going to see, all right, what are they doing? It gives you some reads. And then as that action is going across, then you bring somebody across the field in front of them. But then on that backside, bring a little leak guy, and then you stress him there. And so we did a little bit of that against San Francisco last year. It would have worked, but we had some mistakes with poor throws. or tip balls, which went for interceptions. But I would like to see that. Also, when it comes to running the ball, when you're having like a 3rd and 4, I think the red zone is the perfect time to do a quarterback draw, because I talked about how for an offensive line to fan block, it's the easiest block in football. And for them, they're also trying to play as many guys along the goal line so they're still in that zone. So as they're dropping back and you have your offensive line look like they're pass blocking, then that freezes those guys more on defense, and then you just run right up that crease. So I felt like they should have had more effective plays to try to get the first downs instead of using plays to get the touchdowns at that point when you're already at 3rd down. If you want to go for it, go for bold, do that on 1st and 2nd down. But when you got a manageable, 1st or 3rd and whatever it may be, then try to get that 1st down. So use Dak's legs more, roll him out a little bit, have guys leaking a little bit late, use him on quarterback draws, and then flood those zones. And I'm not seeing them do much of that. Instead, 1st down, it's a simple run play. 2nd down, then we try to go big. 3rd down, here we go. What are we going to do? Then the offensive line kind of went to shambles. So it seemed like at no one point did all 11 guys do their job. It was always that 1 or 2 guys who missing a blocking assignment, or 1 or 2 guys who ran the wrong route and you got 2 guys in the same area on a route, or they're actually running into each other, miscommunication issues. It was always something happening. And you're like, all right, man, we're in the 3rd game right now. We heard all this buzz and all this talk from the players, especially receiver room, talking about this offense is going to allow them to know their routes, run precise routes. They know exactly on the field where they need to be. And we just haven't seen that actually happen. And so it looks like sloppy play, sloppy ball, a lot of guys who are indecisive, not knowing exactly what they're doing with the super conservative head coach. So they got to open this thing up and become more crisp and actually learn what you're doing and just attack it more.
Yeah. So both of you guys brought up the run game too, and Nick's mentioned Rico Dowdle. Having a 2 running back look would cause the defense to have more conflict, right? The defense is like, they could go either way. They can run play action. It could be, all of this could be window dressing and they're actually throwing a fade to CeeDee Lamb or something else. It just causes the defense to have to respect the run game. Now, we have run the ball a lot, probably too much in the red zone, and that's been an issue too. There's been a lot of run, pass when we get to the red zone, in that conservative play calling with the offensive line not being able, 2 weeks in a row, the offensive line not being able to open up big enough holes for the run game to get through. We're ending up with 3rd and 6, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 7, things like that. And now you have to pass the ball, and it's a lot harder because everything shrinks in the red zone anyways. But that leads me to this thought. So Bobby Belt posted this. I want to make sure I give him credit. So here's the tweet so you guys can see. So at Bobby Belt, TX is his Twitter if you want to follow him if you're not already. But red zone receiving stats this year when we do throw the ball. Cowboys have to get Lamb, Cooks, and Gallup more involved. Jake Ferguson has 8 targets. Nobody else has more than 3. That's crazy. Jake Ferguson. And he has a 50% catch rate. So 8 targets, 4 catches, 1 touchdown. Tony Pollard, 3 for 3. So 100% catch rate. Turpin, 3 for 2. And then you see a lot of 1s. Brandon Cooks, 3 targets, no catches. CeeDee Lamb, 2 targets, no catches. Michael Gallup, 1 target, no catches. Peyton Hendershot, 1 target, no catches. Our passing game has not been productive in the red zone. But we already know that a lot of those have been 3rd and longs. A lot of those have been 3rd and 5, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. So it's hard to complete those anyways. We have to get our wide receivers to be a factor in the red zone. We have to. So we already know that we're having a slow, methodical driving offense. So we're not getting a lot of these 30 and 40-yard touchdowns. So we have to score when we're in the red zone. We've had 15 opportunities this year in the red zone. That's awesome. We're getting there. We have to punch it in. It's encouraging that we're able to get there at such a successful rate and be so efficient to move downfield. That's great. But once you're there, Brandon Aubrey's been phenomenal. I'm really excited for what he's done. I'm tired of seeing him. We've seen him too much. I'm glad to know that he can make the kicks. That's awesome. But we got to score points when we get down there. So how do we get those receivers to be more impactful once we get in the red zone? That's the question. And a lot of that, I think, is not complicated. It's throwing on first down. That's simple. Just throwing the ball more on first down. So when we are aggressive in the red zone and we throw on first down, we have a 60% success rate. That's really, really good. When we've done it, we've had 3 touchdowns and 1 field goal. So out of the 4 drives that we threw the ball on first down, we've scored on all 4 of those. On the drives that we don't, you see a big difference. We have a 39% early pass rate, which means you're running the ball 61% of the time, and everything drops. So if we know we're not running productively in the end zone, or in the red zone, I should say, just be more aggressive on first down. Take the shot on first down. Try to pick up 7 or 8 yards on first down with the slant or a flat route or whatever it might be. So now you have second and third and manageable situations. And maybe you go for it on fourth down because it's shorter at that point and easier to convert. But we have to be more creative in the offensive philosophy in the red zone. Dom, did you want to say something before we jump into defense?
Yeah, and whenever you showed that graphic and looking at the targets that our main 3 receivers have had in the red zone, when you think about it, the routes that they're not running slants. They're not running in-breaking routes. They're running simple go, streak, jump ball, fade, 50-50 type things. So you think those 3 dynamic of a receiver who's got the footwork, the ability to, cause some separation, especially when you're talking about Cooks, when they talk about his speed and his crisp route running all off season. And then you think about Lamb, and we know how dynamic he is. All right, create with those guys inside of the numbers and not so much outside of the numbers. You can line them up outside, but do something in the middle. So the fact that you got 6 targets from your 3 big-time wide receivers in the red zone, that's not enough. And then the types of targets that you're giving them, it's not what you really want to do with those guys. So, man, that was a great graphic that he put up, and it just made me think every single one of those, I could tell you all of their routes and what they did. It was all outside the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, whip routes. We see them. The Cowboys are running more whip routes. They did it in training camp. They did it in preseason. We're seeing it from the 20-20, and then for some reason they disappeared. Wheel routes. Like, there's ways to get these guys. How about we did it with Turpin? We put Turpin in the backfield in the red zone and scored. Do it with CeeDee Lamb. Put him back there. You don't have to run the ball with him. Just putting him back there as soon as he does. Major key alert. Defense is CeeDee Lamb. Something's happened with CeeDee Lamb. And now suddenly you hit them on a slant to Gallup or something. Like, there's opportunities there to be more creative. So that was the second blinking light. The last topic I want to talk about before we turn the chapter from this loss, and it happens. We're going to lose games. We weren't going to go 17-0. It is what it is. So this loss, though, there were things that we need to learn. Defense. I felt very confident in our defense going into this game. I knew Deron Bland was going in for Diggs on the outside, so there was already a switch up in the secondary, but we got Donovan Wilson back. We have Jaron Kearse. We have Malik Hooker. We have Stephon Gilmore. We have Jordan Lewis in his second game back. I felt good about the secondary. Defensive line, I was pretty confident weren't going to get as many sacks because Dobbs has done a good job of getting the ball out quickly. However, I thought we were going to force some bad throws and being able to take advantage of that, and we didn't see much of anything great from the defense. 220 rushing yards to the Arizona Cardinals. That's crazy. I never would have imagined that based on how they played against the Jets. We had much higher caliber running backs. I know that the Jets' offensive line is not good, but I felt pretty confident. Worst case scenario, they may get like 80 or 90 yards rushing. 220 rushing yards on this defense. And it didn't seem like we really had an answer. We've had games in the past where the first half a team goes off on us, and then in the third and fourth quarter, we kind of settle things down. They didn't have a huge second half rushing, but we still couldn't stop them from chunk yardage plays. They still were able to beat us when they needed to. Where do you guys want to start? We'll start with you, Dom. Where do you want to start with this defense?
Well, the number one thing that stood out to me was it the very first play of the game whenever second play, I believe it
Second.
was, where Dobbs was able to catch the outside on a simple read option play, and then he's taking it almost to the house on you. It's like, oh, we're not going to play disciplined ball. Like, that's the one play you got to prepare for when it comes to Dobbs himself. And you've already played him before when he was the quarterback with Tennessee. And then you start to see how they're using simple counters on you, pulling the guard and the tackle at the same time, coming across your face, which means they're trying to attack you really outside of the tackles, because they weren't using like the inside power game. It was more of pull those guys so we can get our outside run game going. And they absolutely murdered Dallas when it came to that aspect of the game, hitting that tackle. And one of our issues was just the way that our defensive line alignment was, having the four down guys, mainly three down guys with their hand in the dirt, having either a defensive end or a linebacker like LVE at certain points standing up on the outside, or so far wide non-technique with his hand in the dirt. So it's like you already got a natural gap over there on one side, but we're still going to attack the outside of that end while bringing those pullers. So I saw a stat which blew my mind. I can't remember who posted it, but Arizona had 21 carries for 207 yards and 2 touchdowns outside of the tackles. And we talked a great deal about bringing in a Mozzie Smith, having Jonathan Hankins help solidify the middle to be able to protect the linebackers. And on the inside runs, they only ran the ball 7 times to the inside on Dallas for 17 yards. So it wasn't like Oso Digizua didn't have a good game. It wasn't like Jonathan Hankins wasn't doing his job. They're clogging the middle. They're doing as good as you can hope for them to do against a pretty good center for Arizona. But they hit us on those outsides. And so we got to find some linebackers who can step up to be able to scrape across and be disciplined with their eyes, understand their reads, and knowing how that offense is trying to attack you. So it was another letdown, and it was a big blow for me, because when we start playing teams that are going to attack us the same way, like the Philadelphia Eagles that you're going to have to face 2 times.
49ers in 2 weeks.
Yeah, a mobile quarterback who have offensive linemen who can get on the run. You got the 49ers who it's like herding cats, man. Their offensive linemen do all kinds of things, eye candy, but they have a purpose in why they do things. And you got wide receivers for them coming and helping trap. You got tight ends who's trapping guys. It's going to be a long, long night on week 5 if we're going to don't get some of this stuff corrected with our linebackers, and then just overall that alignment. And I kind of wish we would have gone on and changed some things a little bit earlier, like we did in the second half, to combat what they were doing. Because in a game like that, you make Dobbs beat you. There's no way you allow him to just sit back and comfortably hand off the ball and let that run game defeat you. So, man, run defense, you let us down at a time where we had no clue that you would let us down.
Yeah, and before I let Spoonie go, I just want to talk about the alignment. That was a consistent thing throughout the game. Like on the Dobbs run you're talking about, we had Jaron Kearse outside, we had Donovan Wilson. That was basically it from the outside of Micah Parsons on that defensive front. Micah Parsons crashed down inside. They had a double team on Jaron Kearse. So the only guy who could have made the play at all was Donovan Wilson. Now his responsibility is to contain the outside, force the play back inside. I sent a screenshot. I think I may have put it on Twitter, but I sent a screenshot to you guys in the group chat. No matter what Donovan Wilson would have done, it was at least a 20-yard run. Because if Donovan Wilson was outside to force the play inside like he was supposed to, there's nobody. There's a massive hole with Malik Hooker on the other side of the hash who would have been taking a bad angle, who would have eventually run him down. But the play was doomed from a schematic standpoint for us from the beginning. We had situations where, knowing that we could not stop the run, we had Chauncey Golston line up as zero technique. We had Donovan Wilson lined up at 3 technique. We had Dorrance Armstrong lined up, Oso Digizua at 9 tech. So he's all wide 9. He's all the way outside. We had Tank all the way outside on the other side in LVE. So the interior of our defensive line on that play was Chauncey Golson at 0 technique. You had LVE lined up in B gap, so 3 technique, and you had Donovan Wilson lined up at 3 technique. That's just way too small. It just is. And we had multiple situations like that where the alignment kind of doomed us from the start. So I don't know if I would say DQ got too cute. He didn't adjust well enough. A mixture of those two things, but there were a lot of situations where we were doomed from the second the ball was snapped. They had big personnel. They had 12 personnel in or 20 serious personnel, and we're nickel and dime. Like the numbers game, the body size game was just not in our favor, and we did not adjust. So I don't know if that's the lack of confidence in our linebacker group. I don't know if that's wanting to find a way to get all of our deep safety room on the field at the same time. Whatever it is, we have to be smarter about that. And I have a few other thoughts, but I want to jump on that because great call out for you from an alignment standpoint. Spoonie.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about defense as the offense. But I will say that, and Dom hit a lot of great points in yourself too, Professor O. The thing is, I'm gonna take it back to last season where I forgot what team did we play, but it was a game. The team we played before the Minnesota Vikings game, and we was very bad with the running game. We got gashed, and Michael Parsons came out and said that he took responsibility, but the main thing was guys did not take the assignments they was given. Can we say they just didn't play the assignments, and that's the reason why they got gassed. And that's just pretty much what I feel happened in this game. There was certain assignment that they could have did where to stop the run. We know the personnel. We want to get a little bit more beefier when it comes to the linebacker spot. That would be Damone Clark. But again, going from the first couple of games of the season, we've talked about Damone Clark. Why is he being out-snapped? The guys like Bell, which Bell, he didn't play this game, correct? He suited, but he didn't play this game.
He had like 8 or 9 snaps or something. He played a little bit. It wasn't a lot.
Okay, so and again, it's things like that where I believe the defense. I think Dan Quinn will bounce back. I think the players will. The defensive players will bounce back. They'll look at the film and say, "Hey, what did we do wrong?" There was some wording about them playing hero ball. I believe. Again, I believe it's more of the assignments, and I think they'll get it done. But at the same time, by you playing this bad, you put a blueprint out there for teams like the 49ers, for teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, teams that, we have to beat to get to where we want to be in February. If we can't beat those teams, we're not going to be there in February. And the thing is, they have the talent to do way more than what the Arizona Cardinals did to us on the defensive side of the ball. So, for me, I'm going to take it where they'll correct it. Dan Quinn would definitely correct it. And and they're gonna figure out that this personnel in the room just to put the guys who need to be on that field to make these plays. And hopefully, hopefully one of them is Damone Clark, because my God, we've been shooting stars for him, and this is his time.
Yeah. So Nix has a comment, and Eternal Dynasty did too as well. So we'll talk about that in just a second about the linebacker room in particular. Overall, I'm not panicking on the defensive side. That was a horrendous performance. That's not the energy level, the intensity level, or anything that we've seen from the defense last year or through the first 2 weeks, except for the occasional game. And we've done that in the Mike McCarthy era. We've had a game where things went south. It was ugly, and it is what it is. I was disappointed with the defense, and I was ready to give a Spoonie sermon after that game. I was fired up. I was about to call names out and all that stuff. But realistically, our defense will not play that badly probably the rest of the season. We probably won't see that same type of, especially from like an energy standpoint. It just felt off. Maybe the blow to, the morale from losing Trayvon Diggs took a bigger toll on the room than what we thought. Maybe it was just they were overconfident. I'm not going to make excuses for them and talk for them, but I think we all kind of understand where I'm going with that. From a defensive standpoint, though, I do think we have some issues we're going to have to iron out as the season goes on. And linebackers, one of those issues. So what I'm seeing on film when I watch it is both linebackers, this is not a LVE or a Damone Clark slander session, both linebackers frequently are over pursuing, especially when you watch the outside runs. There were multiple plays where both linebackers ran outside, the running back started to run outside and then cut up, and there's nobody in the middle, and it's an easy 9 or 10 yard gain. There's situations where they're not getting off the blocks. There's situations where both of them are falling for a counter step on a counter run and taking themselves out of the play. Like it's been an issue that we saw a little bit in the Jets game, but just from a little small doses. But it was a frequent issue in the Cardinals game. And once we start to play some of those teams like the Eagles, the 49ers, the Miami Dolphins on Christmas Day, like things like that, we're going to have to be more disciplined. So one thing that I've seen people mention, and I'm going to bring this up for the same reason. Marquise Bell is a guy that DQ loves. DQ handpicked him as a guy that could play that linebacker safety hybrid. Wanye Thomas is bigger than him. He's about 12 pounds bigger than him. He's 6'3", 217, 218, something like that. He's not a small dude. And I know when I say 217, we're thinking linebackers. Like it's kind of ingrained in our mind that linebackers weigh 235 pounds. But if you look across the league, there's a lot of 220-pound linebackers. Wanye did a good job of attacking the run game when he got to play, and he didn't play. Like that was disappointing. So maybe we bring him back. Maybe Devin Harper needs some looks. See what he can do. Like we have to do something different with the linebacker room, especially in games like that. Now, when things are going in our favor and we're able to just attack, pin our ears back and attack because we have a lead, you probably are just fine at linebacker. But when you're in a game where you need to be more physical, you need to be more disciplined, you have to have better gap assignments and things like that, you need the linebackers to make plays, and they just didn't. LVE didn't make plays. Damone Clark didn't make plays. There were a couple plays Damone Clark made, but overall, I don't think he played well at all. LVE, I think, was a liability. So I don't think you got much from the linebacker room this game. So for you guys, do you think we have a linebacker issue in the aspect that we need to, start sounding that alarm, maybe start looking at free agents, think about trades? Do you think it's that we have the answer, we just haven't hit on the answer yet, and maybe that answer is somewhere in the room of guys we haven't seen on the field? What are your thoughts on the linebacker room? We'll start with you, Dom.
So I wanted to kind of clarify a little bit of what you were talking about the over pursuit, because that's the number one issue right now. It's always been an issue with the Cowboys linebackers. Anytime you throw eye candy at them, it's a major problem with them. And okay, that got me off track right there. What's up next? So you got to visualize it. What's happening is teams, Arizona this week, they're literally running to our tackle. Our linebackers are pursuing as if the running backs are going to continue to run the ball towards the sideline. So they're just flying fast, trying to scrape. And we know our team pride themselves over having a fast-flowing, quick, moving players. So they're just screaming all the way like towards the sideline as if that's where the ball is going. But the running backs are literally hitting it straight hard to the tackle, and they're cutting straight and going straight up north, or even bending it back towards the inside. And our guys are just washing themselves out of the play, causing a bigger hole, or allowing the offensive lineman to get into them and just simply one little paw on them and you're gone. And so they got to get that corrected. Like, play sound ball, gather yourself. You don't have to run as fast as you can. You have to have good control, a good control pursuit to the ball, and keep your eyes up. I was also a little bit concerned about the way that J-Ron Curse was seeing things himself. Like, again, you got to make sure the ball is going back inside, and he was playing it too hard to the outside, and he's also looking more towards the sideline, like on that long run that we saw their receiver get for the touchdown more. So yeah, it's a big issue. Like, they got to get something corrected. quick and in a hurry. The linebackers is a major problem. And so what I'm looking for is, I don't know if you have it on the team already. Depth was already a concern coming into the season. DeMarvion Overshone went down. He was going to be a big part of the defense with linebacking play. So now I'm looking towards trades, y'all. And I'm trying to see who out there could we like truly go get where it's realistic for this team to be able to help bring in potentially a starter or somebody that's going to get some significant snaps for you. Right now, it's kind of hard to tell because we're only 3 weeks in. But as the season continues on, the trade deadline is October 31st, Halloween. And by that point, you'll see which teams have settled to the bottom with poor records, where they're already out of contention and they're willing to either make calls to get some draft capital. It's nothing going to be big, or maybe at least accept some calls. So I'm looking at Jordan Hicks from Minnesota, a guy who's been in the league. He's played in multiple schemes. Last year had a resurgence. This year done okay. He's the type of guy that I think, all right, maybe you get him. Alex Singleton from Denver. Denver's not having a great season. Singleton played great for them last year. He's doing okay this year. He's coming from a solid defense. He's a Mike linebacker. And then the guy that I keep trying to get on this team, because he has been good in pass coverage, but yet he's starting to make some strides as a run defender. He's got my last name. He was with the Eagles last year. I think the Rams before that. Now he's with the team that just beat us. He got the nice interception on Dak Prescott to end the game for the most part, Kaiser White. So those are three guys where if their teams continue to lose, I'm looking for them because the contracts make sense. You can absorb their contracts. It's not a lot of dead money on the teams. And then you're not going to spend a great deal in draft capital to be able to get those guys. So that's kind of my philosophy. Start looking at the teams that aren't contending, look at the cap situation, how for those players, and then see if you can get them for a late pick or so.
Yeah, and I'm going to give Nick the floor just a second. When you're talking about over pursuing, just so you guys can visualize this, there are multiple plays from this Cardinals game, probably like 5 or 6 plays that if you pause, you'll see LVE and Damone Clark about a yard apart from each other, with one player from the Cardinals blocking them, because all they have to do, since they're crashing so hard to the outside, like Dom mentioned, is just a quick little, arm motion to your shoulder and let your momentum just take you right out of the play. And then they're looking to get upfield to the next level to block the safety, the corner, whoever else might be, standing there. But you can't have your linebackers both outside of the numbers side by side on a screenshot. Like that's our freeze frame or whatever. Like that can't happen. That's just they're moving too quickly. They're running themselves out of plays. So especially if it's like going to Damone Clark's side and he's on the right side of the defense, LVE should be sliding and moving over, reading the play in case they cut back to be there in that lane, not sprinting to be side by side next to him, or vice versa. So
you replace him. Him.
Exactly.
You don't go run to where he needs to be. You just replace his spot as the play is moving.
Yep, exactly. Knicks, can't believe you're here. You came down from the rafters like Sting with the lights off. We didn't even know you were coming, and then the lights on, and you're in the ring with us. How are you feeling, brother? And talk about the linebacker room, please.
Yeah, y'all can hear me good? I'm on my AirPods.
You're fine. You're good.
Okay, cool. Defensive talk, man, I had to slide in for a second because, man, Dan Quinn, I'm sorry. You got out-muscled in the first half, and you went with your big nickel, and they went Big 12, 13 personnel, and you didn't adjust quick enough, period. You just didn't adjust quick enough. And look, Micah, hero ball, back to what I think that was his name just said, was hero ball. Guess what? You know why Dobbs makes that big run? Because Micah played hero ball, didn't play his position. He jumped down, came down inside, and he got outside. Neither the linebackers on holes, as y'all were just talking about, especially Damone Clark. And look, Damone Clark, 40-some snaps week 1, then week 2 was 17. Guess what? That's went way back up in week 3. Hey, we had issues. Also, the backside. Saw multiple times where it's either Fowler or Dorrance not maintaining their gap, crashing down the line, allowing the cutback lane, big gaps as well there too. It was just it was bad on multiple fronts. There's a lot of ways to kind of blame this, or not, I don't want to say blame. You can look at the tape and see things that happened, as y'all talked about tremendously throughout this process. But again, you came out and you didn't match personnel. And they look, to their credit, right? They were a zone run team. They wasn't zone running though. They were pulling guys, they were trapping, they were doing those things, and we adjusted slowly to it, which caused with some of the hero ball stuff, there as well. Man, it's just this simple. We talked about this, leading up to the season, whether it's in the spaces, on the show, worried about it. And look, allow me to be wrong. Let me own this real quick. I thought Damone Clark was going to take a step forward this year. I don't think it's not good. And then now we're talking about, do you get Harper involved? LVE, not a good game for LVE. Just wasn't, in general. That's what you were saying. Oh, them being so close to each other, not getting into those gaps and filling those lanes and doing those things. Look, I'm not trying to sound the alarm or, it's time to panic. But this is the thing, Dom, that we talked about a lot. And everyone says defense is elite. I kept saying this defense is really good. I don't know if they're elite yet. And games like this lets me know that they haven't turned the corner to being elite yet. They're really good. They're going to win you some games, right? But now we had the blueprint game for the offense. There's a blueprint for this defense now. Just keeping it a buck. There's a blueprint on this defense you're going to play against the San Francisco. The Eagles, as Spoonie was talking about, those teams and what they can get to. Now, we understand the lead options has been a problem here for a long time, and this is including Dan Quinn. That's one thing that the Niners don't have at their disposal. But it seems like the Philly definitely will have that at their disposal in what they're doing. And, I saw earlier Evans has been signed, and that's why, for me, I was big on signing Evans. I'm like, I know he can't cover. I get that. But we need a downhill guy. We need a thumper. We need someone that's not scared to go fill them lanes and get up blocks and do that. And to me, I think ultimately, Dom, I'm with you. The Cowboys have to go add a linebacker to this thing. I'm sorry. I know it's 3 games in. I'm not trying to knee-jerk, but I need some more time. And if LB is kind of look, they had this plan. He dropped the weight. He's a lot of edge work. Mike is not going to play linebacker. Look, Bell's cool, but you're not using him enough. And how long is that going to last? You talked about Juan Thomas being a bigger guy. I'm with you there, as well. But I just think in general, they need to add a capable linebacker, man. It was atrocious of how they played this run game against this team. And I was doing the show with Lando, and he was like, well, these certain guys are so fast and nobody can't get them. I'm like, man, this James Conner, though, he ain't getting to it at times. It wasn't just these other fast Rondo Moores and different things like that. To me, a lot of ways for them is a little bit of a blueprint. You gotta stay run lanes. And we saw this in the Giants game in the first drive, right? They wasn't staying in their rush lanes. We were talking about that in real time. Now, things happened in that game and they got away from it. And then the Cowboys dictated to the Jets, first run play minus 4 yards, doing things. They were okay there. I didn't like the play. I didn't like the play calling against them, matching up personnel-wise. And then, of course, too, trying to match up personnel-wise. I mean, I guess obviously you do need some linebackers, and the Cowboys just like that department. So, color me nervous moving forward to the guy at a linebacker.
Yeah, and a name we haven't mentioned because he's on the practice squad, but we could definitely elevate him. Maybe Malik Jefferson. Maybe when you play one of those teams that we think are going to run the ball more, like the Patriots, the San Francisco 49ers, the Eagles, those teams on the schedule, maybe you elevate a linebacker to have an extra body for if things aren't going well, you insert them and see how they do. I was not a huge Harper fan in the draft, but I thought he looked pretty good in preseason. Granted, we know the level of competition he's going against, but I'd be open to seeing him out there, like give him a series and just see how he does, especially in those games where we get a big lead. Put him out there. Let's see what he looks like. He's already activated. He's active anyways because he's a core special teams guy. Get him some reps of defense and just see what it looks like. Spoonie, we've all kind of covered a lot in the linebacker room, but I want to make sure you get the opportunity. Where are you at with it right now? Are you in panic mode? Are you ringing the alarm, starting to look at free agents, thinking trade options? Are you trying to route somebody to the team? Or do you feel like we may have the answer? We just need to continue to turn over the rocks until we find the right grouping out there.
Oh, listen, you guys know me. I'm always willing to trade. I'm always, for me, Dom names some great names, BJ was banging the table for some names that were picked up, like Rashawn Evans got picked up, Deion Jones got picked up, Devin Bush got picked up. Those are names that I know he mentioned during the offseason. We could help this team if there was questions that we know now that we didn't know then. And so right now, I want to add a guy, and this is a guy that is an old timer. He's experienced. He's won championships, right? And he may not be the same as he came into the league, but for this defense, he'd be very serviceable. Levante David. I would love to trade for Levante David for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I wouldn't mind giving him a low draft pick and bring a veteran guy here on a 1-year deal. Yeah, he's 33 years old. I think he will be affected the way Bobby Wagner is for the Seattle Seahawks, as if we wish he was over here too as well. So that's just one of the guys I wanted to add on to the list, that if they want to make a trade and get somebody who's more seasoned, if they feel that in-house guy like Harper is not the guy, they figure for some reason Bell may not be the guy, I would love to see about Levante from the Buccaneers and see what he could bring to the table. Because at the end of the day, we in week 3, we shouldn't be trying to figure things out right now, especially where other teams that we have to worry about in our division, it's kind of like there's no panic button yet for this team as a whole. But if we don't figure this out real fast, it's 1-game league, 2-game league, 3-game league, and all of a sudden it's hard to catch up. And we gotta need help from other people for us to stay within the race. So again, hopefully the organization will look into this with Dan Quinn and Mike McCarthy and figure this out. If LVE is not doing his job and he looks lost out there, well, listen, swallow the 2-year deal you gave him. It's okay. We all make mistakes. Put in Harper and see what he can do. At the end of the day, if there are guys on this team who are paid, but the guys who have not been paid are performing better, I'm sorry. You may need to put those guys in and you made a mistake. It's okay. That's part of this game. We've seen it so many times. If Bell and Wanya are that effective against the run versus the other guys who were in their place, then you put them in the game. But I would hope they trade for somebody, in my opinion.
I'm so glad this comment popped up. Nick's second. Perfect. Too bad we didn't value Roquan Smith when he was available. Nick's and I were pounding the table. All of us were like, Roquan would be great, especially for like a second and a fifth, I think is what it was. So in hindsight, would you rather have Roquan Smith on this defense versus Luke Schoonmaker and who was our 5th-round pick? Was that Junior Fehoko?
No.
Fehoko.
Yeah. No. Fehoko was 4th round, right?
So I think we had 2 4th-round picks. We had Awesome Richards and Fehoko. I don't know if we had a 5th or not. We may not have had a 5th. But would you rather have?
We traded back up for not Bland, excuse me, Scott, right?
Yeah, but that was the 6th round, I think. Or was it 5th? Okay, so either way, Schoonmaker and whoever it would have been, or Roquan Smith. I think all of us would rather have Roquan. I mean, what's frustrating?
Richards.
Awesome was the 5th-round pick.
Yeah, it was the 5th-round pick.
So my frustration when I'm watching film, though, I already started watching the Patriots film, which I'm really excited to talk about that Friday because that'll be fresh, new opportunities versus the past that we can't change. They have a linebacker. He's number 8, and we're going to talk about him Friday. Juwan Bentley. We don't have a linebacker on our team right now that makes the impact he does. He's everywhere, lighting up players, flowing to the ball, getting pressure, covering. He's commanding the middle of the field. We do not have a linebacker on our roster right now. Now, DeMarvion Overshown, maybe he would have been, but he's hurt, so we don't have a linebacker today that has that type of impact on our defense. And he's not a name you would think of. He's not like the upper echelons, like the former Bobby Wagners and, guys that the Fred Warners that everybody knows that are really, really top-notch linebackers. So when Dom made the comment earlier about looking at some of these teams that, they start out 1-3, 2-5, whatever it might be, you do look at those guys. So you mentioned Kaiser White, maybe Zaven Collins from the same team. We just played him. That's somebody Spoon was really big on. There's going to be a linebacker available that you should be able to get because of positional value. We talk about that in draft time all the time. Positional value for trade compensation also is a real thing. So you should be able to pick up the phone and make a call and get one of those linebackers from a team that is starting to see, this probably isn't for us. We're 3 games or 4 games back in our division. We have a tough stretch coming up. We have injuries piling up. Let's go ahead and get some additional draft compensation. So yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Levante David's a realistic option. He's a good name. He would be a good player, but the Bucks are 2-1. The NFC South is kind of wide open right now. I think they're still going to be in contention to the point where they're probably not going to do a fire sale. But there might be a team like maybe the Carolina Panthers. They may have a linebacker you want to look at. They probably will be out of contention by the trade deadline. The Vikings, depending on how things go for them very soon, might be a team that's shopping. And, they have Ivan Pace, a guy that a lot of you guys liked. I know Nix was super high on him. I know Dom liked him. I know Mendoza liked him. A lot of the draft community did. Probably not going to get him, but maybe somebody who's, coming up on the end of their contract or maybe has a year or 2 left. That might be the perfect target for the Cowboys to target. And, you have to look back at the draft when we're talking about Roquan Smith and potentially trading picks. We had the opportunity to take Drew Sanders. We had the opportunity to take a lot of linebackers. The one we took, DeMarvion Overshown, I think will be a very good player for us, and it's unfortunate he got hurt. But that might have been a position that we probably should have double dipped in the draft and looked at bringing an additional linebacker in there. I don't know what it is about Devin Harper, but I feel like there might be something there. I want to see them bring him in and get him some snaps before we call and make a trade. I don't know. I just feel like there's something there. I feel like his size and quickness, he could be maybe not the answer, but a part of the solution to help with that. And, when you're playing a lot of big nickel and you play a lot of dime, you don't have a lot of linebackers on the field. So the ones that are there need to be impactful, and we haven't had an impact from them yet. So that's kind of where I stand with the linebacker room.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mean, Harper, Jefferson. I mean, you want to look at this stage of the season. You want to, explore, all the options you have in your roster before also going outside and doing anything from a trade standpoint. Obviously, you can sign somebody if you wanted to, but I think still you want to explore those guys first and see, the Harpers and Jeffersons of the world. But like I said, at this particular moment, it's just one of those things of just not good. It just hasn't been. And look, and to be honest, if we're being fair, it hasn't been good all season, but other things have worked very well, right? And so you kind of hidden them some, and then a team decided to run really kind of at them, with traps and pulling and all that stuff, and it just didn't look good. So it'll be interesting to see what Dan Quinn and this defensive role side will be doing next week or this week.
So knowing how the Cowboys operate too, if you're looking for names, I'm seeing a lot of names in the chat. Devin White from Tampa, Kenneth Murray, Frankie Louvu, Tremaine Edmonds. So Tremaine just signed a big deal with them, so I don't think he's an option we'd look at. What the Cowboys like to target, though, would be a guy like a Kenneth Murray. If you're looking for younger players that are coming up at the end of their contract, where the Cowboys can get them as a rental, see how they do, and then look at them compensate or, salary cap wise next offseason. A player who was a first round pick that did not get their 5th year option picked up, which is what I think Kenneth Murray is. Guys like that make a lot of sense for the Cowboys because we have a potential Dak Prescott contract coming up. We have a CeeDee Lamb contract coming up. We have Micah Parsons contract coming up. So we're going to have some big salary cap decisions to make in the future. So taking somebody on that can help you but doesn't cost you in future years will be valuable to the Cowboys. So if you can start looking at guys like that they don't have to be a first round pick, but the guys that are on the last year of their deal that you can bring in and make that assessment saying maybe we let LVE walk and give LVE's money to this player or somebody like that, that's kind of what we should start targeting. So if you guys want to start looking at in the chat over the next few weeks, and we can do the same thing on the show, that's probably the Cowboys' wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Patrick Wayne out of Baltimore be another guy too. Maybe last year his deal was looking for a deal that is extending. So there's another name out there.
What was the name you mentioned? I heard Baltimore, but I missed the name. Just
Patrick Queen.
Patrick Queen. Yeah, so guys like that, that's probably what we should be targeting. Again, guys that just got a new contract or were just drafted, like Ivan Pace or Drew Sanders, probably not realistic even though their teams are doing bad. But other guys in that linebacker room, the Denvers, the Minnesotas, the probably not the Giants in division, the Jets, depending on things go. Like, maybe we look at Mosley or somebody from the Jets, depending on if their season starts going south. Those are probably the realistic trade targets.
And
so,
here's
go ahead.
the thing too, and just to end on that, like Denver could be a very good spot to look at linebacker just because obviously things are going good over there. They're kind of tied to the contract and the trade with Russ Wilson. Not sure how that's working out, and they need draft capital for Sean Payton to rebuild. So they might be willing to move a guy, right, in the linebacker room to help them get some draft capital back in there. So that might be a team to go over there and look at and see what they have at the linebacker spot and see if there's something you can do there if it comes to that.
Yeah, that's what I did, with Alex Singleton. That's the guy on the Broncos. Because you look at, they got Josie Jewell. They just got him a couple of years ago out of college. They got Drew Sanders, our guy that we liked. And so now you got a veteran that's there. Well, you got the younger guys that you want to go ahead and let them have a chance next year or to finish the season to see what you really got out of them, while being able to let a guy like that go to get some compensation back because you have the situation where you need the picks. So, yeah, first look at, do they already got some young guys that are already in the fold? Check. Do they got some potentially older guys or guys exiting their rookie deal where, they haven't been just great studs necessarily, but they know that they may not be able to bring that guy back because of the potential of what they may be able to make, or maybe something's happened where things aren't meshing well. All right, you might let that guy go. Do they take dead money? Do we assume a big cap hit? It'll all work itself out. But yeah, start looking at those poor teams who aren't contenders, and you can kind of start to circle guys and go, all right, but how do they match up with our scheme and what we do? And then it starts to make sense. So it's not hard to try to find some of these targets. The only thing that tends to suck is whenever they actually go and make a move or bring in a guy and you're like, who? And we're draft guys, and we know a lot of guys from different colleges. So when I get like somebody like Mendoza going, I don't even know who that is, and he knows guys from Northeast Dakota, it's like, and then they never do anything. So I think we all would be in agreement to say, step it up a notch. Go and get a guy that's actually going to do something for this team. Because really, your future, it's now. It's here. This is a team that has the ability to truly contend for the championship. I'm truly not caring about next year when it comes to draft capital and a cap situation. Right now, you have all the ingredients, it seems, to make it to the championship game. So why not shore up one of your weakest spots by bringing in a truly solid guy in that spot? Because, man, y'all, we can't look and go, well, next year we're going to be better because we'll be able to have da-da-da-da-da. No, next year, money situation gets a little bit tougher. Mm-hmm. Next year, you're going to already have less picks already because of the allotment of things. Just go, make it happen, use next year's pick, use even future picks, maybe a player trade, player for player trade, but bring in something that you can get where it's a quality player.
We did that with the cornerback room, right? We had Kelvin Joseph. We had a deep cornerback room. We didn't know if he was going to make the 53 or not. We can guess he probably wasn't since they made the trade, and they called Miami, who had a former first-round pick coming up near the end of his contract, still young, and Noah Bignogany, and they made a trade for him, a player-for-player swap. So maybe you look at the safety room. That's a unit right now that's super deep for the Cowboys. Maybe you pitch a safety for a linebacker or something like that. And hopefully, in an ideal world, we don't have to even worry about that. This is a one-game aberration. We forget about this 5 weeks from now. We're like, the defense is balling out like we expect and all that stuff. But it is something you have to look at, and especially that the Cowboys' MO for the last few years is we've struggled against teams stopping the run. We have not been able to contain the edges. We were 22nd in run defense last year. But we know we can take the ball away, and we know we can get after the quarterback, but can we stop the run? We made the trade for Hankins. We drafted Mozzie. The interior's been pretty good so far, but we still are having issues on the edges. So if we can't fix that, we either have to change something schematically or go get a different player to help us out, because I don't want that to be something that we're talking about in the playoffs again, saying we can't stop the run when it mattered. Like, that should not be an issue year 3, year 4, year 5, where we're talking about the same exact thing. So it's something we definitely wanted to highlight. Nix, did you have something you want to say about that, or Spoonie, before we move on to the final thing?
Yeah. And last thing on this is, on one hand, look, two things can be very true, right? And and I saw somebody talking about, we're going to talk about the coaches. I think you already talked about the coaching to a certain extent with the offense. I came in and kind of talked about the coaching with Dan Quinn and how the player personnel matched up with what they were doing. But also, too, I don't want to get lost in the sauce of, we got to Thursday, very late in the week. You get the Diggs injury and the Giannis injury, both the same day, boom, right? And then, okay, the very next day now, Tyron Smith in the knee. So it was a odd, situation where from Thursday till that game Sunday, you were missing big pieces of your team, right? And sometimes that can affect. Obviously for us, and the PTSD comes in of, oh, here we go again. We gave a bunch of rushing yards, things like that. I don't want to overshoot, the idea of what happened from Thursday through Sunday with players that were missing and how it changed what they wanted to do in Arizona, right? But I think we have to look at the tape, and what we talked about tonight is tape-wise, it's not just this week. It's the linebackers have had an issue all year. They've been kind of masked. So I think that's a real thing to talk about in that realm. Something, as you said, 4 or 5 weeks now, the defense ball out, they're playing their positions, everything's fine. It could absolutely be that because of just what happened this week. But again, during Dan Quinn being here over the 3 years, we've had problems stopping the run. Dom, you brought up a great stat earlier. A lot of it was on the edges and not up the middle. We talked about it going into this season. We got to set the edges better to do those things. One of the reasons they drafted, Kyoko Jr. was he's here to help you set the edge, and he's yet to be active. So it's just something to keep in mind here on a week where we took it on the chin, if you will, especially in the run game.
Yeah, and real quick, the defensive line rotation, maybe that's something we need to do too. Like, if Dorrance and Dante Fowler can't stop the run, then they don't need to play unless it's a situation where we fully expect the pass. Like, maybe we need to get Sam Williams more reps. Maybe Chauncey Golston needs to slide back out to play edge. Maybe we need to get Mozzie and Hankins in the middle together and play Osa more out edge. Whatever it takes to stop the run, I'm cool with at this point. So the last thing I want to do in this segment before we wrap up our show, last topic, is how big do you think this loss is in your opinion of the team moving forward? Like, the first 2 weeks, riding high, Super Bowl aspirations, everything looks great. Week 3 came and we got punched in the mouth. We all know football, you're playing against a team of 53 professionals on the other side. Doesn't matter what their record is, they want to beat you every week. Do you think there were enough red flags that maybe now you're like, okay, let's take a step back? Do you still feel the same way? Like, how do you feel about the team going into week 4 compared to how you felt about the team going into week 3? Has anything changed for you guys? Chat, let me know how you guys think too. Are you guys trending up, trending down? No change from week 3 moving into week 4 versus the previous week. We'll start with Spoonie.
For me, I'm trending up. It's an embarrassing loss, 100% embarrassing. You lost to a team again that was put together in the last minute, and anytime you get a quarterback who is not, he didn't have the off season. He wasn't there. He just familiar with the playbook as far as the familiarity of who's there. That's about it. But other than that, I mean, it was just bad. You have 2 corners who are very young. We got CD, we got Cooks, we got Gallo, hell, we got Tolbert. I mean, we just had more weapons on the field that game, and it was bad. But I think I've always say this. Sometimes it's always healthy to get your head knocked out. To just get knocked out early than later. And I think they went to that. Why? Because they was embarrassed. The Arizona Cardinals, be serious. Are we really serious? So I think, when we all trip, we fall, you get up. They fell hard. They got embarrassed. It's like they right now they feel like they're the laughing stock of the NFL by losing to the Cardinals, right? So in my opinion, I think this team is going to rebound. They have the leadership to do it. They have the attitude to do it. And they understand that, a game that people thought that you couldn't win, you're going to have to replace this because this should have been a win. Coming up, you got the Chargers after this week. You got the 49ers after this week. You have the Chargers. So I think right now they're going to get it together. The coaching staff have the accountability as they all spoke during the press conference, and they'll get the thing together, put these guys where they should be at. And if it's something, if something is just not right, I believe the front office would do what they need to do to get the right guys just to come in. So I'm trending up with this. They'll overcome this.
All right. So far, Spoonie's trending up. The chat is kind of hit or miss. We'll talk about that. There's some trending up, some trending down, some no change. Dom, how do you feel in terms of expectations for the rest of the season this week moving forward compared to how you felt last week?
Well, first, we're trending down. However, I want to say if we continue the pattern that we're on as far as wins and losses, we go 12-15. But I think we all believe that you might need that 13th win in order to be able to take the number one seed. And so the fact that you're losing to a team this early that you should have trounced, that doesn't bode well for that 13-win season or 14-win season to be able to get that number one seed so you can be sitting at home the first week, play one less game to be able to get to that championship game. So we're definitely trending down. We needed this game to be able to help with any potential tiebreakers because you lost to an in-conference foe. But the thing that concerns me is we've now been exposed to a fatal flaw for our team, and that is run defense. We already knew that, the efficiency for the red zone was a problem, but eventually I think we all feel like that'll get fixed. Last year we were number one at this time as far as a red zone offense, and then continued that throughout the year. This year we're 27th in red zone efficiency as far as the offense concerned. But now the defense is showing a major crack in it. And we already knew that was a problem coming into the season, but I thought, we fixed that. We solidified it, and we just burst that thing wide open again. So teams are going to be looking to do that. We have 5 big, major games on our schedule against teams who can attack us that way, with 4 of them being in-conference teams. So you want to be able to get that fixed. It is a long season ahead, but right now things are starting to trend downward for me. But we can easily rebound by getting a victory this week and then going into that showdown with San Francisco. Because if we can win that game, then that arrow is definitely going to be pointing due north.
Yeah. I want to let Nix go last on this topic. I have no idea. By the way, I have no idea where he stands on it. He's our guest tonight since he's coming in from the rafters to help us out. So for me, I agree with what Dom said. I think the arrow's trending down right now. That doesn't mean that we can't still have a good season. That doesn't mean that we can't still win a Super Bowl. But I have to be honest, my confidence is shaken on the defense because I don't know that we have an answer for the run game. I just don't. I don't trust the linebacking core. And until I see it, I just don't know that we can do it. So week 5 will go a long way for me moving forward in terms of confidence because we kind of have to get that monkey off of our back. And I think that would be a great opportunity to do that and show that we can come up with answers to stop the run. But again, it's part of our DNA until it's not. Until we see that we can stop the run against a good running game, I'm going to have some concerns there. So last week, I was feeling like this team is legit. We're going to be a Super Bowl contender. And right now, I feel like I need to take a step back from that. I think we could have a really good season. It could even be a special season. But until we find a way to stop the run when we know teams are trying to run on us, that's just where I'm at. So I feel like right now we will get the red zone stuff situated. I think we'll get some health on the offensive line. I think this team plays really well when we're up. The defense is great when we have a lead. But when we don't have a lead, I don't know. I don't know that we have an answer right now. Maybe we'll get some. But, yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Nix, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about this. 70-10. I mean, it wasn't going to be that all year, obviously. I look at teams that, last year's Super Bowl team in week 3, they go on the road and they lose to the Colts. They had no business losing to the Colts. They did. You saw San Francisco last year go on the road. They lost to Denver. No business losing to Denver. So teams that are really good and go far in the playoffs or maybe even go win the Super Bowl, they will have a game you're like, what the hell was that, right? So I take that, into consideration. I do think there are answers stopping the run, and you got to use Mozzie Smith. And to me, during the game, I said it in real time. I'm like, after the first couple of drives, I'm like, look, let's get Hankins, Mozzie, and Odighizu out there at the same time. Let's get that package out there and match up their 12 and 13 personnel with some of our bigger guys.
And not stun.
And not stun, right, that part, and not stun. Because we did stun our asses into some big runs. Thank God for that, yay. The linebacker situation is a situation, and until we see a Harper something, there's things to be had there. But you'd rather win this game than lose the New England game in the grander scheme of things. But here we are, and Bob said, leading up when we had the season show, the season release show, schedule I should say release. I was like, the Cowboys have to stack a lot of wins in the first half of this season because what's on the backside, and losing this game, obviously, long term, you think about it, does it stop us from winning the NFC East? No, you can play the Eagles 2 times. Now, can it be something that causes us to not have number 1 seed? Possibly, but you get a chance in San Francisco to get that tiebreaker. So those are things ahead of them they can take care of. And look, I mean, for what it's worth, and I know, look, a lot of people listen to national media, and the Cardinals, they're tanking. That's what they're doing. But guess what? I'm not saying who Washington is. Washington was 2-0. They got blasted by Buffalo. That's fair. They opened up against Washington, played them very tough. Probably should have won that game, to be honest with you. Lost at the end. They played the Giants. I get it, the Giants. But again, they were up 28-7 at one point, and then the Giants were able to come back and get them. So they played tough. It's not like a team that's been laying down, getting blown up. This ain't a Denver Broncos situation, top team of what's going on there. And, the Cowboys, unfortunately got. The one thing I said last week going into this with the injury to Trayvon Diggs was I thought it meant the offenses have to go up a tick. And I think, unfortunately, what we saw, mainly red zone, they didn't get that tick. And three of the 5 offensive linemen were out. I think that obviously mattered to them. Let's hope that's not a situation moving forward. We did learn about some of these backups and what they can do. But I'm even killed. I'm not really up or down. I'm even killed, but I'm with y'all. Man, let's see how they can stop the run moving forward. New England will probably look. They're going to look at it, and they're going to come at us. And then, of course, you have San Francisco. Again, I don't want to completely knee-jerk, and it sucks because of what happened with that run game. Let's see moving forward. But Dan Quinn, you said it perfectly. Stop. And we were told this offseason they wasn't going to stunt nearly as much. And, boy, they stunt their ass off into some bad runs. So, I'm not panicking yet. I'm not trending up or trending down. I'm pretty much even keel at the moment. And let's see what answers they come up with this week.
Yeah, and I think that's well said. I think realistically we need to think about this as not college football. It's not a top 25. You're not worried about getting one of the 4 spots to make the college football playoffs. You're going to lose games in the NFL. We saw the Chiefs lose to the Colts last year, and the Colts were terrible. We've seen this stuff happens. It sucks, but it is what it is. For me, it wasn't necessarily losing. To be fair, losing to the Cardinals would have frustrated me either way, but it was how we lost to the Cardinals. Just getting gashed in the run game and not being able to come up with a solution in game was frustrating because we've seen that happen too many times. But it is what it is. That's over. We got a chance to vent and get it off our chest, diagnose and analyze what happened and what went wrong. Now we get to plan for the Patriots on Friday night and how things could go right to get back on the winning track. Because if we're 3-1 heading into the 49ers game, which is where, I think we're planning on being 4-0, but 3-1 at the worst case scenario, I feel pretty good going into the 49ers matchup, and I look forward to that. If we're 2-2, then suddenly that 49ers game becomes even more important. So the Friday night show, I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be fun conversation because the Patriots team adds some wild card factor into it because the Patriots will play completely different from week to week. You're not going to see things on film and see all of that this upcoming week. They may run 45 times against us because of how we played against the Cardinals, or they may have some wrinkles we haven't seen yet. So that should be fun. But my last thought in this game is It sucks to lose football games. It's never fun. We're going to be mad, and that's okay. But you also have to remember it's a long season. Things like this are going to happen. You're going to have games where you have injured players. You're going to have games where you get penalties. You're going to have games where you get turnovers. You're going to have games where things just don't go right from an energy standpoint, coaching standpoint, or whatever. Hopefully this is their one of the season, and we got it out of the way early. Let's start stacking some wins. Want to give a quick shout out to our guy, Nix, your _guy_Nix on Twitter. It's in the YouTube description if you're not already following him. Get well soon, brother. Hope you feel better tomorrow and are ready to go Friday. Spoonie881 on Twitter, Dom W. White on Twitter, and I'm Professor O_NFL on Twitter. We'll have Mary in the full panel Friday night. Hope you guys have a great night. Look forward to talking ball Friday night. You guys take care. Peace.